Sigmund Freud. Look into the depths of your own soul and learn first to know yourself. Then you will understand why this illness was bound to come upon you, and perhaps you will thenceforth avoid falling ill. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. There is little that gives children greater pleasure than when a grown-up lets himself down to their level, renounces his oppressive superiority, and plays with them as an equal. The only unnatural sexual behavior is none at all. When inspiration does not come to me, I go halfway to meet it. History is just new people making old mistakes. He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. It is impossible to escape the impression that people commonly use false standards of measurement, that they seek power, success, and wealth for themselves and admire them in others, and that they underestimate what is of true value in life. Without love, we fall ill. The unconscious of one human being can react upon that of another without passing through the conscious. I had the greatest respect for the authorities of my day until I studied things for myself and came to my own conclusions. Our possibilities of happiness are already restricted by our constitution. Unhappiness is much less difficult to experience. We are threatened with suffering from three directions: from our own body, which is doomed to decay and dissolution, and which cannot even do without pain and anxiety as warning signals; from the external world, which may rage against us with overwhelming and merciless forces of destruction; and finally, from our relations to other men. The suffering which comes from this last source is perhaps more painful to us than any other. How bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. Where they love, they do not desire, and where they desire, they do not love. Psychoanalysis is in essence a cure through love. In the depths of my heart, I can't help being convinced that my dear fellow men, with a few exceptions, are worthless. One must learn to give up momentary, uncertain, and destructive pleasure for delayed, restrained, but dependable pleasure. I became aware of my destiny, to belong to the critical minority as opposed to the unquestioning majority. If it's not one thing, it's your mother. When one does not have what one wants, one must want what one has. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. From error to error, one discovers the entire truth. Dogs love their friends and bite their enemies, quite unlike people, who are incapable of pure love and always have to mix love and hate. Time spent with cats is never wasted. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. When a man is freed of religion, he has a better chance to live a normal and wholesome life. The only shame in MMM is the shame of not doing it well. If you want your wife to listen to you, then talk to another woman. She will be all ears. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? Maturity is the ability to postpone gratification. Civilization began the first time an angry person cast a word instead of a rock. To be completely honest with oneself is the very best effort a human being can make. I have found little good about human beings. In my experience, most of them are trash. All family life is organized around the most damaged person in it. Life, as we find it, is too hard for us. It brings us too many pains, disappointments, and impossible tasks. In order to bear it, we cannot dispense with palliative measures. There are perhaps 3 such measures. Powerful deflections, which cause us to make light of our misery. Substitute satisfactions, which diminish it. And intoxicating substances, which make us insensible to it. The only person with whom you have to compare ourselves is that you in the past, and the only person better you should be. This is who you are now. Love is a state of temporary psychosis. I prefer the company of animals more than the company of humans. Certainly, a wild animal is cruel, but to be merciless is the privilege of civilized humans. We are what we are because we have been what we have been. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. They can transfer knowledge from teacher to student. Words enable the orator to sway his audience and dictate its decisions. Words are capable of arousing the strongest emotions and prompting all men's actions. In the small matters, trust the mind. In the large ones, the heart. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. We choose not randomly each other. We meet only those who already exists in our subconscious. Human beings are funny. They long to be with the person they love, but refuse to admit openly. Some are afraid to show even the slightest sign of affection because of fear. Fear that their feelings may not be recognized, or even worse, returned. But one thing about human beings puzzles me the most is their conscious effort to be connected with the object of their affection, even if it kills them slowly within. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways.
This was released from For the Sake of Education by Flow Wisdom. If the content was helpful, make sure to subscribe.